I have a second channel, Cube Computer Plexi. Hey everybody, this we're going to be upgrading some hardware on the Cube Computer Plexi. We're going to be upgrading the motherboard from the existing Gigabyte model, how do I can find it, GA-MA7-4GM-S2 socket AM2 Plus board to this motherboard right here. This is a Asus M4A78LT-M. Now, looking at this board, you may be thinking, "Oh, it's a retail motherboard like what you would get off a Newegg." Actually, that's not the case with this board. This motherboard here is an OEM version of the Asus M4A78LT-M. That was it was more or less they took an existing retail board and stripped it down a little bit for use in the Asus CM1630 desktop computer, which is that one right there. So this motherboard still has its original memory as well as CPU, which is an Athlon 2 dual core 220, as well as 4 gigs of DDR3 memory. Now the only difference I'm really seeing physically between this motherboard and the retail M4A 78LT-M is the lack of a IDE connector right here. You can see where it wasn't included on this board. This is exactly the same PCB, although with a couple of differences. And I was looking online, and I found an article with a link to a modded BIOS that would pretty much turn this motherboard back into a retail version, which would give you lots of features, including overclocking, core unlocking, and stuff like that. Which I'll be featuring swapping the BIOS on this board in a different video. We're just going to be swapping it over in this video. So before I go ahead and get started, I should mention that off camera not too long ago I actually swapped out the processor on the Plexi. I was running an Athlon 2 245E. I swapped it out for it's for an older CPU. It's an AMD Phenom triple core 8450 processor. So I'm in a way, I'm just like, I'm kind of on the fence about the swap, because the CPU that's in there offers level 3 cache, and the one that's on this other motherboard does not. But AM3 processors are easy to come across on eBay for cheap these days, and this motherboard here, from what I had seen on the internet, supports up to the Phenom 2 6-core. So the options are there, but I'm also curious to see what the core unlocker would do with this CPU if it works. But the only issue I'm going to have with the Plexi is the fact that the Plexi has an IDE DVD drive. I can swap out that drive for a SATA drive, but it would involve me having to pry that drive out of there because it's glued in there. The Plexi, by the way, is practically glued together. The hard drive cage is glued in. The CD drive is glued in. Now, if I ever had to change out the hard drive, yeah, the hard drive cage would have to come out, but it wouldn't be too hard to get it out because it's not too big. The optical drive, a little different story. So what I'm going to actually do with that is I'm going to pick up a IDE to SATA adapter. They sell on Amazon and eBay for, like, I think less than $10 or somewhere around that price. And I'm going to do a separate video on adapting this existing drive to work with the SATA connector on this board. So, I mean, because the drive itself works perfectly fine. It's just it uses an older style interface. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and shut down the Plexi and swap this out. And I'm also going to swap out this video card as well. This is an NVIDIA GeForce 210. the card that's up there right now is a Radeon HD 4650, and I don't use this machine for real graphical intensive stuff, but I mean, this graphics card was actually running on this board when it was in the TV box. This motherboard spent about a year or so in the TV box, and I forgot to mention when I started this video that this board was featured in a part system video from 2017 or 2018. Whenever I got the computer from the Google Grid Store, it's up on the channel somewhere. But anyways, we're going to shut this thing down and we're going to swap this board out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and shut off power to the system. And we'll go ahead and pull out the video card that way and get the motherboard off. And disconnect all our cables here. Yeah, what's nice about the current Plexi is I can easily swap the motherboard on it. Long-time viewers may somewhat remember the old Plexi, where the motherboard wasn't glued to the system, but it was just kind of weird how I had it installed. The current Plexi I reused a motherboard tray out of an old HP desktop, and it worked perfect for this. Yeah, it's nice. What's nice about this thing is the ease of access to the components. The way this thing is put together. And of course, the design of the Plexi really resembles that of a test bench system. So, for those who don't know the background and history of the Plexi, this was the computer I put together in high school in the computer engineering class. This was like our final little project for the computer engineering 1 class, where they more or less the school purchased pallet loads of these pieces of acrylic. You had the 2 different sizes, and we put them all together in this frame, and most of us utilized retired hardware from the old school computers, which were compact Despro EN towers with Pentium 3 processors. This was 2006, by the way. So it wasn't anytime real recent. It's been a while. And I had to question how many of the students still have these things. That's something I always tend to wonder, is how many of the students are actually still either using their Plexi or what have you. Now, they didn't call these Plexis back in high school, but the computer engineering teacher, his name was Michael Healy, and he coined up the name Cube Computer in 2005. He said, this is the beginning of the class. He mentioned to the class near the end that we will be assembling cube computers near the end of the class. And let's just say that during my senior year of high school, Michael Healy was tragically killed in a car accident. So, yeah, it's tough, but in 2006, around 2007, I decided that I was going to call my computer hobby Cube Computer Company, and that's also where the Cube Computer branding originated from. I'm going to finish pulling this thing out. Not exactly certain where the next home for this motherboard is going to be, but Thinking about slapping this into a tower and making it into like a loaner system. For whenever I work on people's computers, they need a loaner system or whatever. Probably the first place it will go is my parents' house whenever I next upgrade the Black Macs, which due to coronavirus it's kind of difficult to find. At least I've noticed motherboard prices on Newegg and Amazon have skyrocketed recently, at least when I last looked. Because I was going to order a ASRock B450 Pro 4 full-size ATX board for the Black Macs to pair up with a Ryzen 5 2400G that was donated to me. And that motherboard has not been in stock for the past little while. I'm not sure why I disconnected that. Didn't need to do that. That's for the CPU. Okay, so we should be able to pull this right out. Let me see. Make sure I ain't missing any screws anywhere. Man. It was in there. And of course there's a random piece of plastic from probably when I was modifying something and tearing something apart. Plastic flying around. You know how it goes. It's just like when I was doing the modifications for the recent TV Box Slim build. Plastic flying everywhere as I was using tin snips to cut that laptop all to pieces. Okay, so the old board is out. Set it off to the side somewhere. And pop out the shield plate. And we'll snap in the shield plate for the replacement board. That one actually went in pretty easily. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they are a real pain to deal with. Yeah, we're going to drop this board in. One thing you might notice is this little guy right here. So this motherboard, and I'm not sure if I'm thinking this is probably also the case with the retail board, is Asus decided to not use the standardized front panel header connector block. They decided to change things up and make it like an old board, to where they were just kind of all over the place. And Asus, in the original case that this motherboard came in, the cable had both this right here as well as a standard, the standard style, like, where is it? Like this right here. But if you ever was to take this motherboard and put it into a different case that only had this, you kind of out of luck. So I had to make an adapter, so that way, in the future, whatever chassis or case this motherboard ever goes into, this should be a drop-in fit as far as that goes. What it is, I took this header, I harvested this from a dead motherboard, and I soldered up the wires. I salvaged one of the because of course I anytime I scrap a case, I save everything from USB ports to what have you, and I sacrificed a front panel header connection to make this, because I was not looking forward to having to repin the Dunlop connectors on every single time I needed to transport this motherboard to a different case, because I was having to take these individual wires out. It was just a pain. It was a pain. So don't want to worry about that anymore. And finish putting these screws in. Okay, we're going to drop in the graphics card. And one thing I wish this motherboard did have was a USB 3 ports, but I could actually buy a expansion card for that. One of the reasons why I'm swapping this board out is because the USB controller on that Gigabyte board was just flat out awful. Not sure why it's liked it the way it was, but it just seemed like anytime you were copying files off of USB storage, the throughput was just so terrible. It was like USB 1.1. And I did check in the BIOS and made sure that USB 2 was enabled and stuff, but it just, like, for example, tasks like loading Windows off of a USB, or just copying files to and from SD cards or USB sticks or what have you, anything involving USB storage, it was just horribly slow. And I was pretty tired of it. And also, well, yeah, it was mainly that. So here's the adapter I was talking about. I'll take it off here, give you a little bit closer look at it. So what I did here is I sacrificed a front panel header connection from under a case and pulled out the individual metal leads. What I did is I fitted these in to the proper holes for this motherboard, and then soldered up to this standard header, which follows the standardized design that you find in most of these in most cases these days for front panel connections. So as I mentioned, that way I will never run into this problem ever again with this motherboard. Whatever case it goes into, I shouldn't have to worry about having to deal with front panel connections for the power, reset, and hard drive activity and power LEDs. So just plug it in just like that. And we'll plug in our USBs. So this one has plenty of USB headers for USB 2. Hopefully the performance of the USB 2 on this board will be better. I'm sure it probably will. So as for the CD drive, we're just going to leave it, the DVD drive, we're just going to leave it detached for now, until I get the adapter for it. So I'm going to pull this cable out, for this IDE cable, and get it out of there. And as mentioned, I could theoretically, I could actually swap out this drive for a SATA drive, but I still want to deal with the pain of having to change it out. Plus, given I have a crap ton of these IDE drives kicking around, I like to be able to keep some of them in use. So there you have it. So should have an audio connector somewhere around here. Yeah, it's way over here. Okay, so this cable here is for the actual boot drive. And this is for the secondary drive. And these other two cables are for the front SATA hookups that I have. So this motherboard should support SATA, RAID, and AHCI. And I'll have to have the RAID mode turned on so that way I can hot swap drives like I usually do with this thing. And hook up our power. Okay, I believe that's it. Now we're going to plug everything back up and see how everything works. Okay, let's go ahead and start it. Okay, so now we're in the system BIOS. We just need to go in and set up some things. Look at the system information. So yeah, as mentioned, we got an Athlon 2 dual-core 220 processor. And I was kind of on the fence between swapping out for that 245E, but I'm just going to leave the 220 in there, see what we can do with it. There's the build date, by the way, for those who care. Okay, so this one, port 1 through 4, can operate as RAID, and port 5 and 6 can operate as IDE. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to swap out ports. I'm going to use port 5 and port 6 for the two internal hard drives, or well, the hard drives that are actually primarily used for the Plexi. So ports 5 and 6 will be used for the two red SATA cables, since they interface with the internal hard drives on this thing. And we'll use the remaining ports for everything else. Okay, so I'm going to set SATA port 1 through 4 operation to RAID. And let's go ahead and check through everything else. This is the hardware monitor. So right now you're getting an idea of what's in this BIOS, and you can see it says CM1630 BIOS setup. And also this motherboard, when you look in CPU-Z, the motherboard information shows up as Asus CM1630. So to see what happens after we flash the BIOS, the modded BIOS that's out there for this board. So you may notice there's no overclocking options or anything like that on here, because this motherboard's BIOS is for that of an OEM system. As I mentioned, it's practically the same motherboard as the retail version, but they just have a limited BIOS on it. So we're going to exit and save. We're going to go back in and make sure the boot priority's right again. Now I'm kind of curious about something. The RAID just picked up the 2 hard drives, so I'm kind of wondering about something here. Oh, I see. Now, why did it set both to RAID? Now, I'm not sure if I did that. I'll have to look back at the video and see, but I thought I left port 5 and 6 set to IDE. Let's try this again. I mean, I could leave them all set as RAID. I don't think it'd be an issue, but let's see this time. Okay. Alright, that's what I wanted. Okay, maybe it was my mistake, I don't know. Yeah, making sure the Western Digital drive is the primary, because that's our boot drive. Okay, let's see what Windows 10 is going to do here. Let's see if it's going to pick up a digital license from the previous setup. Kind of curious how that's going to work out. So in case you're wondering, the hard drive is in the Plexi, at least the main drive. It's a Western Digital 1TB enterprise drive. Came out of a parts, or not a part system, but it came out of a traded-in system from about 4 years ago. There was 2 of them. I have a second one in my drive collection, and it's actually a pretty for a mechanical drive. It does seem to perform pretty well, and it gives the Plexi its the sound you hear of the hard drive. This is the kind of the way the Plexi used to sound back when I built it in high school. So yeah, we definitely got to install drivers, or let it install drivers. And let's see here. Yep, it's activated. So it carried over the previous digital license it had when it was in the TV box. Because theoretically, the only thing that's changed, according to what Windows thinks, is would be the lack of a CD drive and different hard drives, but same video card, same RAM, all that good stuff. So we're just going to let this thing install drivers, and we'll come back. Well, everybody, that's it for this video, but don't forget, there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to Cube Computer channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way you'll get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, but if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.